Okay, what's today? 28? And this is quiz 2, study guide. Good? Okay. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna address that tomorrow, but we're gonna come up with something for that. So here we go. Number one on the there's one multiple choice question on the study guide. So number one there, what's the solution? H over 30 equals 23 over 6. You did a bunch of these the other day. So we go 6 times h, which is 6h. We make it equal to 23 times 30, which is 690. We divide both sides by 6, and h equals 115. Done. All right, and then it goes to number one again, but the second number one is for short answer, which the rest of the problems on the study guide are short answer. So number one on the short answer. Sarah is currently making $32,000 a year, has been offered a raise to $36,480. What would be the percent increase in her salary? All right, so remember that percent of change is the amount of change divided by the original amount, right? Amount of change divided by the original amount times 100. So her amount of change, we're going to take 36,480. We're going to subtract 32,000. All right, and what do we get? 40 should be 4480. So 36,480 minus 32 grand. 4480. That's her amount of change. So we're going to take her amount of change, which is 4480. We're going to divide it by her original amount. The 32,000 is her original amount because that's what she's currently making. We're going to times it by 100. Now the 4480 is still sitting in your calculator, so you can just push divided by 32 grand equals times 100. So 14% raise. Oh, I'm sorry. That it would be a 14% increase. I'd take that. That's not bad at all. Brevard County School Board, when you're making $32,000 a year, they give you a bump. They give you about another $100. They bump you up 32.1. Thanks, guys. Very generous. What's that? Yeah, $4,000. That's a lot of money because what I do, a $4,000 raise. Okay, you take the 4480 and you divide it by 52. Yeah, that would be a salary job. They hire you, they tell you they'll give you 32 grand a year, they offer you a new job or something, or they offer you a raise, 36,480. All right, that's 4480 raise. I take the 4480 in my head, not my head, on the calculator. I take 4480, I divide it by 52, right? That's $86.15 per week. All right. The other thing you do is you take 4480, you divide it by 12. That's $373 a month. And then you go, dang. And then what I try to do is if I'm going to have an extra $373 a month coming in, I try to only spend half of it. You know what I'm saying? So maybe I'll go buy a car and I'll only spend half of that on my monthly payment. That way you still got some extra money. Instead of going out and spending all of this, go buy a new car and your new car payment's $380 and you're like, oh, I can afford it. I just got a $373 raise. But then you're just as strapped for money all the time as you were before the raise. You know what I'm saying? And your car's just going to sit parked in the driveway because you can't afford to do anything. So dividing it by 52 gives you your gross extra per week. Dividing it by 12 gives you your gross extra per month. All right, number 2. That's not Burns, is it? You need to go make up your 13105. Pert makeup, 7/11. 7 over 11 equals negative 13 over x. So crisscross multiply here. 7x is going to equal 13 negative times 11, negative 143. Divide by 7. Negative 20.43. And then number 3, negative 14 over y equals 6 over 3. Crisscross multiply. 6y equals negative 42. Divide both sides by 6. And that's going to be negative 7. All right, on number 4, it says you deposited $500 in a savings account that earns simple interest of 3.5% per year. How many years do you need to keep the money in the account to earn $175 in interest? All right, the first thing you need to do in this problem is you need to find out what is 3.5% of 500. What is 3.5% of 500? Because that's how much interest you're going to make per year. So your is your x, your of is 500. It's equal to 3.5, which is your percent, over 100. We're gonna solve for x here. So 100x equals 3.5 times 500, which is 1750. We're going to divide both sides by 10. No, already. $1,750. That's not. Yeah, it's 1,750. Getting my head on myself a little bit. Good coffee again. Going to divide by 10, and our x is going to equal 1750. Divide by 100. Getting ahead of myself. All right, that was full of mistakes. So x times 100 is 100x. 500 times 3.5 is 1,750. Divide both sides by 100. 1,750 divided by 100 is 17.5. Now, that's how much interest you're going to make per year. Interest per year. The question is, how many years do you need to keep the money in the account to earn $175 in interest? So now you take $175 and you divide it by 17.5, which is how much you're going to make per year. right? And that is the number of years. So 175 divided by 175 divided by 17.5. It's going to be 10 years. That is a long time. That's why the banks are making all the money. They give you 3.5% for your money, but then they loan it out for 10 and 11 and 12%. Number 5, 19 over negative 4 equal to t over negative 20. Negative 4t is equal to negative 380. Divide both sides by negative 4. T is equal to negative divided by negative, that's a positive, so t equals 95. Come on, screen. Number 6, f over 6 equals 25 over 2. 2 times f is 2f. 6 times 25 is 150. Divide both sides by 2. F equals 75. Number 7 asks you, what percent of 40 is 16? What percent of 40 is 16? So 16 is your is, 40 is your of. The percent is what you're trying to find, and it always goes over 100. So we're crisscrossing again. 40x equals 16 times 100 would be 1600. Divide by 40. The 40s cancel. And x is equal to 1600 divided by 40. It's probably like 40. 40. I don't know what made me think of this, but you guys ever heard of that company, Apple? Y'all heard of Apple? They make like iPhones and things like that. They reported yesterday their 2020 fourth quarter fiscal report, which means every quarter of the year, every 3 months, companies report, they report their earnings. And they put out a report to all their shareholders and to the public what their sales were, what some of their expenses were, how much money they made per share, all of this financial data goes out. And then they post their predictions for the next quarter. Well, for the first time in the history of like the world, Apple surpassed $1 billion in sales for a quarter. 3 months. They brought in, and I think the number was 111 billion in sales in October, November, December of 2020. And in the report, the guy that was talking about the report said, yeah, we could have done better had it not been for COVID. So the amount of money, I mean, there's so many zeros after that, it ain't even funny. You know what I mean? Of what they're doing and how massive that company is.
This time we are moving to a shelter-in-place status. At this time, we are moving to a shelter-in-place status.
Make sure that door's locked for me. Just stick your arm out there and make sure that handle's. Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But all right, number 8, a dress that normally cost $85.50 is on sale for 55% off. What is the sale price of the dress? All right. So we have to find 55% of 85.5, right? The question is, what is 55% of 85.5? And then we have to subtract that from the price. So what is, the is what we're trying to find. Our of is 85.50 equals, our percent is 55. And it always goes over 100. So we're going to crisscross multiply again. 100x equals 55 times 85.5, 4702.50. We're going to divide by 100. And our x is going to equal $47.03. Okay, so that's how much is coming off the price. And on a multiple choice quiz, this is probably going to be an answer choice. But it's not the answer, is it? They're not asking you what the discount is. They're asking you what is the sales price. So now to find the sales price, you have to take the original price, which was $85.50, and you have to subtract this 55%, which is 47.03. So 85.50 minus 47.03, and that's $38.47. That's the answer. So be careful. Some of these questions are relatively simple, but don't make, this would be considered a careless mistake if you stopped it right here, the 4703, and you.
This is Mr. Solomon. At this time, we are moving to a lockdown status. Again, this is Mr. Solomon, and we are now moving from a shelter-in-place to lockdown. Thank you.
What does that mean? Lockdown, potential danger in the building. Lockdown announcements made. Clear everyone from the hallways. Lock interior doors and windows. Turn off the lights. Turn off the lights. Move away from sight. Do not open the door. Be quiet. Be quiet. Take attendance. Wait for an official to open the door. So we're away from sight, aren't we? Can't see through that windows. Okay. Number 9, you deposited $1,350 in a savings account that earns simple interest rate of 1.5% per year. If you want to keep the money in the account for 8 years, how much interest will you earn? The first thing you have to find out is what is 1.5% of 1,500. So you start off by X over 1,500 equals 1.5 over 100. Crisscross multiply. $2,250. Divide both sides by 100. All right, so this 2250 is the amount of interest that you earn in 1 year. You want to keep the money in the account for 8 years. Keeping the money in the account for 8 years, how much interest will you earn? So you take your 2250 and you multiply it by the 8. And that's $180. All right. So in 8 years, on your 1,500 you put in the bank at 1.5%, you're going to earn a whopping $180 in interest. And the bank's going to lend your money out at 10 or 11%, and they're going to make 8.5 or 9% on your money. So they're going to make what?
Commodores, this time we are lifting the lockdown. Thank you very much for your understanding and patience with this process. Again, we are lifting the lockdown this time. Thank you.
So they're making quadruple on your money what you're making on your money. That's why they're called banks. Number 10. A van travels 180 miles on 10 gallons of gas. All right. So this is miles per gallons. Just write it down in the order that they say it. Write your ratio in the order they say it. A van travels 180 miles on 10 gallons. So 180 miles on 10 gallons equal to, find how many gallons a van needs to travel 450 miles. So 450 is your miles, and we're looking for how many gallons we need. That's your setup. So it's simple from here. Make sure if your miles is in the numerator of the first fraction, your miles is in the numerator in the second fraction. That's the only way you can mess it up, is to put miles over gallons equals gallons over miles. Don't do that. Miles over gallons equals miles over gallons. So then 180 times G is 180 G. 10 times 450 is 4,500. Turn that top light switch back on, please. Thank you. Divide both sides by 180. So your gallons equals 25. And most of you don't have a 25-gallon tank, so you're going to have to stop for fuel somewhere. Let's see, number 11. 550% of what number is 663.3? 550% of what is your 663.3 over X equals your percent, 550 over 100. Crisscrossing again. We get 550X equals 663.3 times 100. 66,330. Gonna divide by 550. $120.6. All right, number 10 or number 12 says, what is the total cost of a $99.78 meal at a restaurant after including a 12% tip? So you're trying to find out what is 12% of 99.78. And then you're going to add that to the 99.78. Okay? So is over of, the of is the 99.78 equals percent, 12% tip over 100. So crisscross multiplying 100x equals 99.78 times 12, 1197.36. Divide both sides by 100. $11.97. All right, $11.97. There's your tip. But they didn't ask you for the tip, did they? Total to leave. So you take the amount of the meal, $99.78. You add the $11.97 for the tip. All right, so we go $11.97 plus 99.78 equals $111.75. All right. And if you go somewhere to eat and you get good service and you leave a 12% tip, you're cheap. All right? You're cheap. You get good service, you leave a 20% tip. All right? You go out to dinner and the bill comes, it's $100. What's 20% of 100? 20. You leave that waiter or waitress a $20 tip. All right? Your meal's $120. Got it? Don't be no 12% tipper. You're cheap. Clear? You give them 20%. If they're real good, you give them a little bit more. Everybody crystal clear on that? See, we learn life lessons in here too. Give them a cheap old tip and they give you good service. Next time you go back, they're going to spit in your food. You know what I'm saying? If you were a waiter or waitress and the going rate's 20%, you're busting your butt. You know, you're getting them that ketchup and bringing them that extra water and that extra tea. Can I fill that up for you? Food comes out hot. Everything is right and tight. They give you a 12% tip. You're cheap. Right? Isn't that what you would do?
My family just grabs the largest bill in our wallet and puts it there.
The largest bill in your wallet. That's a great philosophy. What's the largest? What if your largest bill in your wallet's a $5 bill and you got $100? You should have left a $20 tip. Then hopefully you grab 4 of them, right? Yeah. 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 20%. 20%. Yeah. Yeah. Just go real fast. Carry your planner with you. All right. Just go real fast. Come right back. If anybody asks me, I'm gonna say I told you no. Number 13, during the month of February, Fabulous Feet Shoe Mart. That's a tongue twister. Say that one 3 times fast. Fabulous Feet Shoe Mart. They sold 50 pair of red loafers. After an ad campaign to boost sales, they sold 61 pairs in March. Find the percent of increase. Well, remember, this is when you subtract bigger. You take bigger minus smaller. So we had 11 more pairs of shoes, right? Amount of change divided by original amount. So our amount of change is 11 divided by our original amount is the 50. That was before the sale. And then we multiply that by 100. So we take 11 divided by 50 times 100. 22%. It's an increase. That's a nice increase. Increasing your sales by 22%, that's a good thing. Which brings us to number 14. The circulation of a newsletter decreased from 6,000 to 3,100. That sounds about like Florida Today, doesn't it? Does anybody read that thing anymore? You know what they call Florida Today now? Well, they've been calling it this for 25 years. They call it mullet wrap. You know, because when you go buy mullet at the bait store, they wrap it up in newspaper. That's the only thing that newspaper is good for. Wrapping up dead fish. Newspaper's garbage. Circulation of a newsletter decreased from, all right, so you got to take big number minus little number. 6,000 minus 3,100. 2,900. There's your amount of change. So we take 2,900 and we divide it by the original amount, which was 6,000. We times it by 100 and we get have 48%. And this number went down. They went from 6,000 down to 3,100, so this is a decrease. Sorry. What'd you do over there? Yeah. Good idea. Do you want me to wait a couple seconds so you catch up? I know, but then you won't get the new stuff. It's only good. You writing down number 14 now? I just don't want you to miss anything. You weren't gone very long. Number 15, we got x plus 8 over 3. and that's equal to 6/8. So we're going to crisscross multiply it. So we're going to take 8. I'm going to do 8 times the x plus 8. I'm going to make it equal to the 3 times the 6, which is 18. And then we got this distributive property here. 8 times x is 8x. 8 times 8 is 64. And we got an 18. Going to subtract 64. So now our 8x is equal to 18 minus 64. Negative 46. Divide by 8. Negative 5.75. Number 16, school guidelines require that there must be at least 2 chaperones for every 25 students. So look, as you read it, it's chaperones to students. That's your ratio. Chaperones to students. You need 2 for every 25. How many chaperones must there be for 90 students? Chaperones to students. Chaperones to students equals chaperones to students. Your 90 students goes in the denominator. So when you crisscross here, you get 25C equals 2 times 90, which is 180. You divide both sides by 25. Your C, which is the number of chaperones, 180 divided by 25. It says you need 7.2 chaperones. Can you have 0.2 of a chaperone? Can you like stop somewhere and pick up a leg, call it a chaperone and throw it on the bus? You can't do that, can you? You got to have the 8 chaperones to maintain that ratio. So your answer here, you can't have 7.2 of them. You got to have 8 chaps. And trust me, 7.2 will be an answer choice. Or whatever you get as a decimal will be an answer choice. And anything over 7 has got to go to the next whole number. Or anything above got to go to the next whole number. Can't have a portion of a chaperone. Number 17. Goes back to what percent of 170 is 85? Is 85 of 170 equals percent. That's what we're trying to find. Over 100. So our 170x equals 85 times 100 is 8,500. Going to divide by 170. And x is going to equal 50. All right, 2 to go here. The viewership of a television show has decreased from 5.3 million to 3.5 million per episode. Find the percent of decrease in viewership to the nearest percent. Read that carefully. Nearest percent. You may want to circle that too. Nearest percent. So we're going to take bigger number again. We got to find the amount of change. 5.3. We're going to subtract 3.5. So 5.3 minus 3.5. That's 1.8. They're down 1.8 million per episode. That's a lot. That show going to get canceled. So we take our amount of change, which is 1.8. We divide it by our original amount, which was the 5.3. And then we multiply that by 100. So 1.8 divided by 5.3 times 100. 33.96, we get 34%. 34% decrease. Did that say per episode? Per episode. You got 2 more episodes left and you're done. No one's watching your show. Right? 34%. 33%, 3 times is 100%. Bye-bye. I guess that's those series where they have 1 season. Right? Why would you only have 1 season? Well, the pilot was really good, so they invested the money, and then nobody watched it. So it's like, man. Did you see all the people bowing out of the Super Bowl? Advertisers? First year in like a ridiculous amount of years that Budweiser will not have an ad in the Super Bowl. They won't have no Clydesdale ads this year. Budweiser, Coke, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, they've stated that instead of spending their money this year on ads for the Super Bowl, they're going to donate that same amount of money to the fight against COVID-19. So could you imagine being the network that is broadcasting the Super Bowl and you were counting on that billions of dollars of advertising money and those people go, yeah, we're not going to do it this year. Oh my God. Hammered, right? Pepsi, Coke, and Budweiser not going to run any Super Bowl ads? Man. Because what those networks do is they pay the NFL to broadcast that game. And then they sell ads during the game to make their money back. You know, so if you give the NFL $100 million because you were going to sell 500 million in ads, and now you're not selling your 500 million in ads, it's like, ooh, boy, that hurts. That's painful. Come on, guys, maybe a couple ads? Just one real long one? I think they sell those ads in like 15-second increments too. You get your 15 seconds for like millions of dollars. Isn't that interesting? You know, personally, I am so anti-advertising. There's so many theories to advertising. There's advertising philosophy. There's theory of advertising. There's one thing about advertising that is a fact, that a consumer needs to see an ad or something related to your product 7 to 9 times before it will influence their decision. So a lot of Budweiser advertising, Coca-Cola advertising, Pepsi advertising, that's just a reminder that we're still here, we're still strong, we're still a brand that you can be proud of. It's brand recognition, it's brand pride. You know, you keep drinking your Budweiser because that's what you do. It's more of that than it is, I'm going to run this ad, you're going to go buy Budweiser. So there's a whole philosophy to it. And that's why when these companies lay out their advertising budget, they lay it out for maybe a year, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. What are we going to try to do with this money over this amount of time? The other deal about advertising is that some companies make so much money that you have to spend some of your money. If you don't spend enough of your money that's coming in, you end up just paying taxes on it. So if they're bringing in $100 billion a year, they got to spend $10 billion a year on advertising just to get rid of the money. So they're going to spend it in basically what would be like ritzy situations. They're going to run Super Bowl ads. They're not going to run one. They're going to run 5, or they're going to run 8 of them. You know, they're going to do the big billboards on the interstates. They're going to put you're going to have the Budweiser upper deck in Fenway Park, you know, with the 100-foot Budweiser sign. That's the things that they're going to do. And it's just to remind all of their customers that, yeah, we're still here and we're strong and this is what we do. And we've been doing it for 100 years. And thank you for being a customer. You know, I'm going to put an ad in the yearbook and hope that somebody calls me to cut their grass. It's more of a donation than it is anything. You know, you have to come up with a strategy to spend your advertising money that is going to affect the people you're trying to affect. You know, we always decide what's going to make a customer call us to come cut their yard. We spend all of our money on lettering our trucks, lettering our trailers, and giving our guys t-shirts and hats. You know what I mean? So that when they all show up to a job site, everything matches. All the guys have matching shirts on. They all look kind of neat and clean. And the neighbor sticks their head out the window and goes, that's a good looking crew. Let me call them. You know, that's where we get all of our business. They're like, yeah, I saw your truck or I saw your trailer. So let me finish this up. I only got one problem to go. If sales tax is 9.5%, what is the cost of a pair of shoes with a price of $95? So we got to find out what is 9.5% of 95. All right, so here's is over our of, which is 95, equals our percent, which is 9.5 over 100. We're crisscross multiplying again, so we got our 100x equals 9.5 times 95. 902.50. We're going to divide by 100. That cancels. X equals, we're going to divide by 100. 9.03. All right, now that's not your answer though, is it? That's just the tax. That's just the tax. You have to add that tax to the price of the shoes. So you got to take the $95 price of the shoes. You got to add the $9.03 for tax, which is a ripoff, but you got to add it. 95 plus 9.03, 104.03. All right, there's the price of the shoes. $104.03. Yeah. Okay, so that concludes the study guide for today. If you e-learners don't have any questions, or if I don't see or hear any questions in the next 10 seconds or so, that I'm going to close the meeting. There will not be a Zoom meeting tomorrow. I will post the quiz number 2 to the resources tab and the answer sheet to alerts later today or first thing in the morning. So I'm gonna stop